to the PIC focal person, Sir Renante Agnes, to our instructor, Sir Aljon de la Torre. My dear classmates, a pleasant day. I am Liezl Palay from Liezl Elementary School, Rojas. My topic is about the objectives, levels, components of educational planning, organization, and management. When it comes to educational planning, one question that bears in our minds is, why is there a need for educational planning, or what is the importance of educational planning? So educational planning is important to advance our educational goal and identify the key priority areas of improvement, and to have a better development or outcome. Educational planning. It is the application of rational, systematic analysis to the process of educational development with the aim of making education more effective and efficient in responding to the needs and goals of its students and society. There are 7 objectives of educational planning. First is the political dimensions, economic, science and technology, legal, demographic, cultural, and sociological dimensions. I am going to give a brief description of each objective. First is the political dimensions. It says that the political objective of the educational planning should relate to the promotion of justice, peace, law order, and good governance. Next is the economic dimensions. The economic consideration in educational planning should lay emphasis on the need for the individual to live happily. So the educational plan should include labor and employment aspects. Educational plan should tend towards preparing people for gainful employments, development of gift of nature, and production of goods to satisfy human wants. Third is the science and technology dimensions. Education for technological advancement should be well planned, financed, and implemented for the development of individuals in the technological society. The legal dimensions. Education planning requires specific legal framework. The legislative, courts, and the judiciary have important roles to play in education of a nation. There is a need for legislative support for educational planning. Demographic dimensions. Education planning should take special notice of the structure and characteristics of the school-going population and the population around the schools. Planning without sufficient demographic data results to failure at achieving the educational objectives. Cultural dimensions. Linguistic and cultural groups influence the operation of educational planning generally, and also the implementation of policies and education. So the national development objectives should be culture-oriented. because of the social value system as it affects education. And the last one is the sociological dimensions. Educational planning should be able to consider the close relationship between the structure of the society and the schooling. My next topic is about the level of educational planning. So there are four levels of educational planning: the mega, macro, micro, and the institutional. Mega it is a long-term or mid-term plans designed by the international organizations. The macro is a plan made by the national or country level. So dito lang po yan sa ating bansa. Ang micro naman po ay plan made by the divisions or districts. So katulad po sa atin, Division of Palawan and sa amin ay Rojas South Districts. Institutional, plan made by the schools. Educational planning divided into three terms. First is the short-term planning. Can be accomplished within a month. The middle-term planning naman made by 1 to 5 years. And the long-term planning can be planned 15 years and above. And the last one are the components of educational planning. So meron po tayong siyam na napapaloob sa educational planning. Ito ay ang mga sumusunod: educational status and the head count, supply and demand of teachers, educational financing, school buildings, curriculum development, educational materials, expansion models, relevance to political, economic, social, and cultural policies and objectives, and the legal basis. So, isa-isahin po natin ito. First one is the educational status and the head count. Every realistic plan is based on a dependable census. When figures from the head count were dependable, so we could estimate with reasonable accuracy the number of classroom, teachers, and the headmasters, the desk and tables elaborative, capital and recurrent costs. Supply and demand of teachers. The quality of education depends solely on the quality of teachers trained. This is because they can only teach what they know. There is need for restructuring of the curriculum of colleges of education and faculties of education to respond to national needs. Also, steps should be taken to improve the conditions of service of teachers if they are to remain in the education sector. Educational financing. Make your budget work for your school improvement plan while taking into consideration of the following. So first is the old budget. So learn from your underspending and overspending. Next is the pupil number. This is based on the census. The exam results. So we should identify which part of the curriculum could benefit for the money. Pay scales of teachers and staff. And the last one is the other resources requirements. So this can be money for maintenance, insurance, and other operating expenses. School buildings should be adequate maintained because of their depreciation value, which, if not properly looked after, could be hazardous to the existence of the users, that is, teachers, students, and other personnel of the schools. Curriculum development. The constant modification of the curriculum is necessary. Since the curriculum should be relevant to the needs of the society is not static, it is dynamic. Next is the educational materials. Educational materials such as books, study materials, teaching aids may make the educational program fail if not properly organized. Expansion models must be created from the beginning to bring into consideration what is invasive in the primary, secondary, and the senior secondary schools many years ahead, and to look for the possible strengths and weaknesses they can borrow and avoid in the present one. The relevance to political, economic, social, and cultural policies and objectives. So, if the educational plans are not closely geared towards political, economical, social, and cultural objectives, they will not take off and people will be educationally dissatisfied. And the last component of educational planning is the legal basis. Planning takes place under established laws. The legal framework for the planning should be streamlined through the legislation to include the form, structure, and functions of the planning units and agencies, the staffing and the responsibilities, the relationships of the units with other educational authorities. So yan po ang binubuo ng aking report. Sana po ay meron kayong natutunan tungkol sa objectives, levels, and components of educational planning. Before I end, I would like to leave this short quote. A goal without a plan is just a wish. So, pagplanuhan ng maayos, tahakin ang tamang direksyon to have a better outcome. Thank you, keep safe, and God bless us all.